So, how you doing today? We're going to be starting a new series. It's a series on things I do to keep my arteries clear. Jesus loves to use that term. Since I'm a physician, I tend to be a little bit nervous about that term. But here's the thing: it's the term that people understand. So the bottom line is keeping plaque out of your arteries. Well, how do you keep plaque out of your arteries? Go back and look at what causes it. 90% of the time, somewhere between 75 and 95% of the time, or in most people, it's too much insulin, too much glucose on a regular, ongoing basis. Now, so you'll end up seeing us looking at multiple things. I think one of the most important, well, I don't think, we all know, the most important thing is diet. You cannot outrun a diet. You cannot out-supplement it. You cannot out-stent a diet. Doctors can't out-stent. They cannot out-prescribe a diet. So actually, this morning I had eggs and bacon and butter for breakfast. We're actually doing a video on, the goal was originally to do 100 eggs in 10 days. But I'm overachieving on that. I loved eggs. I love eggs, always have. And I'm averaging like 12 eggs a day right now. Part of the goal for that one is, you may remember, we did a live video back in May of this year. If you haven't seen it, go back and take a look. It was on eggs. And it was amazing, the response that we got. And what was really amazing was so many people still think eggs are bad for you. And so I'm going to eat a whole bunch of eggs. I got some labs last week. I'll get some more labs this week and maybe a week or two from now to demonstrate that, eggs don't mess your metabolism up. Eggs are good for you. So that's a couple of comments about diet, a couple of comments about what we're doing with the channel in terms of upcoming and past videos. But a lot of people are interested in supplements, sometimes interested in supplements too much, interested in, just like everything else, sometimes interested in exercise too much. They think they can overcome a diet. They can outrun a diet, outlift a diet. You can't. A lot of people think they can out-supplement a diet. No, you can't. Again, I'm repeating myself on that concept. Now let's get to the topic for today. It's Natto. And Natto is actually very much related to vitamin K2. I originally started taking vitamin K2 when one of my viewers started raising the issue with me, said, "Hey, doc, check out vitamin K2." So I did, and I found out a lot of interesting things on that. Actually, vitamin K2 is one of our more popular topics. And here's a little tip on vitamin K2. It might not be what you think. Like so many things in life, it seems very obvious to just about every content creator on YouTube that vitamin K2 takes calcium out of the artery walls where we don't want it and puts it back in bones where we think we do want it. And the reality is you might actually want calcium in your artery walls. If you know more about plaque, you understand what I'm talking about. The other thing is it might not matter one way or another. Calcium might just be a marker of something else. But again, this video today is not about vitamin K2 either. It's about Natto. It's about this little bag that it's hard to see because it's a foil bag. But if you could see it, and I don't know if Jesus, if you've got an image that you can show, This is all in, it's from Korea and it's in kanji. And it's got this little picture of some beans right here. And the beans clearly aren't just beans, there's some other cheesy looking stuff around them. And for those of you who know what natto is, that's exactly what it is. It's soybeans that have been fermented. Why do I bring that up in at the same time that I'm talking about vitamin K2? Well, one of the major sources for vitamin K2 is fermented soybeans. Geek alert. Where does that come from? Bacillus subtilis is a certain bacteria that tends to hang around soybeans. And when you ferment them, you get a lot of Bacillus subtilis. That Bacillus subtilis makes vitamin K2. It also makes natto. As you see, this is my Georgia Bulldogs cup, and this is my coffee. I've already had some, but you know how Jesus is. He works me to death trying to get this content, and I agree with him. We want to get this content out to as many people as we can. It's saving lives, so we want to do that. So I'm having another cup of coffee just for Jesus's sake. And again, you may have noticed a couple of logos here. Unabashed advertisement for the state of South Carolina, where I live half the week, and the state University of Georgia in Athens, where I live the other half of the week. Anyway, back to natto and Bacillus subtilis. You see, Bacillus subtilis creates a couple of things. Number one is natto, and number two is vitamin K2. Like I said, I got into natto because I was going after vitamin K2, and I discovered natto on the way. So, Jesus, was that the introduction that I know you probably wanted me to do better, but I did the best I could. You want to come in and join me? There you go.
I am so proud of you, Dr. Brewer. You just digressed a little bit into X and vitamin K2, but just a little bit. So I think you did well. The whole point behind this series, hi everyone, by the way, is to show you guys, give you an answer to what a lot of people ask about, and is what Dr. Brewer does, right? And we're doing some, I don't want to say spoon feeding, like one tip at a time.
Pardon the pun.
Pardon the pun. And I don't think we are sponsored by Nattokinase, nor any specific brand. That powder he's using is the one that Dr. Brewer researched and liked.
I can't even read any of the writing on this thing, let alone work out a sponsorship deal. So
big jump. How do you call that? Leap of faith, right there.
Yeah, leap of faith. Well, I got it on Amazon, and I looked at the reviews, and they were really good. I tried it a few times. I liked it. Believe it or not, I've been using that for years. I've been putting it in my coffee.
Well, and the other part is Dr. Brewer might need to start learning Korean. So if he wants to know if that powder actually has Nattokinase on it.
Well, I assume from the picture that that's what I'm getting, and from what Amazon's telling me that that's what I'm getting. I did learn a little bit. This is mostly in kanji for those that speak or read these languages, or it looks like kanji. I learned a little bit of kanji when I was working at Toyota, but not enough to read that.
Yep. And just to go back to some fundamentals. If somebody's thinking, well, Dr. Brewer is just pushing unproven supplements and trying to deceive people. First things first, we said it from the beginning. Lifestyle, diet, exercise, those are critical components. Those are the major components. But we also have people asking for what else you can do.
Right.
And if you want to know more about the research behind Nattokinase, I just placed multiple links on the description video. Of course, the evidence, some of that is really good, some of that is not as strong, but we have a lot of research signals. And I can tell you a couple of things about Nattokinase. One, Some research showing that it can decrease blood pressure. Some research saying that it also has some antiplatelet effect, similar to aspirin. Some research saying that it works better in old people, better on obese people, and better on people who smoke or drink alcohol. So we're not saying use Natto and you will decrease the risk of smoking. We're not advocating for either smoking or alcohol. Just saying that if you already have that problem, this might help. But of course, quitting smoking, quitting alcohol, exercising, eating better, that's way more effective, right? All right. So that's and if you want to know more about nattokinase specifically and some of the research on that, we do have a video on that you can take a look. Links on the description as well. Any other additional comments on nattokinase, Dr. Brewer?
I will make a couple of comments. Well, it's not on nattokinase.
Okay. Do you want to address the elephant in the room then?
You mean the big bandages on my neck?
I remember you said you didn't want to stop the show for today and wanted to just tell people what happened.
So yesterday
are you into pit fighting now, or what are you doing?
Yesterday I was attacked by a surgeon with a scalpel.
Oh man!
I inherited a proclivity for basal cell carcinoma, skin cancers, from my mom. I don't think she would mind my sharing it. Several members of the family have it. I'm 67 and I've had about 50 of these at this point. So I told Jesus, I can't wash my hair. So I've got a really bad case of greasy hat head. And so I decided I'd just wear my favorite South Carolina cap and just go ahead and come on and tell people, don't get too distracted. I've got my own health challenges, many of which I have shared. I've got plaque. I've got a major tendency for skin cancers. I had a couple of Bose removals of these skin cancers yesterday. I've got had atrial fib. I still have atrial fib. And in fact, there was a lot of interest on atrial fib in the last video that we did on aspirin. It was a very popular video. And one of the major concepts that comes up about aspirin is when not to use it. And no, don't use it with atrial fib because it doesn't work. Atrial fib increases your risk for stroke specifically by 5 to 8 times. And so I'll also share this. Jesus and I, maybe we could get some reactions from the audience here. So Jesus and I are arguing about how to do the title for the next atrial fib video.
Oh, no, that's settled. I mean, you said
you think it is.
You said I'm ruling with an iron fist. It's going to be my title, and I just accept it.
Now, this is information about the channel and what we're doing, but buried in this is a very interesting piece of information. So, Jesus has this thing about what he calls buckets. We have to do number one this, number one worst, number one best, etc. And yes, you have to. The viewership has climbed dramatically. But here's my perspective. My concern is that what we call paroxysmal atrial fib over the past decade or two has made a huge splash in the prevention world. And here's why. Most strokes we used to think were what we called cryptogenic strokes, CRYPTOGENIC, cryptogenic. And it's another geeky word, but it basically means we don't know what caused it. Well, what we're finding more and more and more is that the people that have these cryptogenic strokes, these strokes that you don't know what caused it, actually had paroxysmal atrial fib. And what is paroxysmal? I mean, in a paroxysm, it just happens for a few seconds and then it goes away. It may happen a few seconds again today, and then it goes away. And that's incredibly common. So here's the battle that Jesus and I have been having. I've been saying, well, then it's paroxysmal atrial fib is the number one cause of strokes, or number one undetected cause of strokes. That's what the message that I want to get out, that folks are not very much aware of paroxysmal atrial fib. And if they're not, if they have it, they're not aware of it, they have multiplied their risk of stroke by 5 to 8 times, and they don't know it. And I think we can all rely on the fact that it's not very likely that their doctor's going to tell them. So here's where we get stuck. Jesus's point, and it's true, he said, well, no, in reality, most of these people started off with insulin resistance, prediabetes, just like you did. So the number one hidden cause of strokes is actually prediabetes. Did I present that argument, that debate correctly, Jesus?
You just dismissed the part where you started yelling, but
I didn't yell. That must have been. I think you're mistaking that for the time when we found out that your intro didn't work on the last video. That's what I think.
Dr. Brewer, way to lose half of the audience. They don't care about YouTube. They just care about nattokinase or atrial fib and plaque. So we can go back to the main topic, please.
Okay. So anyhow, I'd be very interested in hearing from the audience what you think. Which do you think is the number one hidden cause of strokes? Is it undiagnosed prediabetes, or is it undiagnosed paroxysmal atrial fib? And if you were managing a channel like ours, how would you title that a video getting that information out there?
Okay. So is that a question for the audience?
That's a question for the audience. I'd love to hear feedback on that.
Okay.
Because if we get a strong message from the audience, okay, so Supernova 76 is saying diabetes. Hey,
you can start saying I was wrong. Yet again.
I'm beginning to think I may have been wrong.
I'm not.
No, it's like everybody's saying prediabetes. Oh, gosh.
You're the pre-diabetes guy, Dr. Brewer. You're supposed to root for pre-diabetes. And we're not saying atrial fibrillation is not a problem. Of course it is, and we're going to address it because we want people to be aware of that. I'm just saying pre-diabetes is a major problem. All right. So let's go to Q&A, Dr. Brewer, and start addressing some of the questions. I know nattokinase was really brief. That was the whole point behind this session. Just a practical tip. See what Dr. Brewer uses. He uses that specific powder, 1 spoon on his coffee. That's what he does. Not saying everybody should do that, but we're putting some links on the description for more research so you can make your own decisions.
And I will tell you, if you want to go deeper into nattokinase, you and I did a live on Natto 6 months ago. Not even that long ago.
And the link is in the description too.
Oh, okay. So if you would like more content very specific to nattokinase, hit that link right below the video.
Right after the Q&A. Gilbert, let's put a water bowl here. All right. So shout out to Paimo BD, who just became a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking on the join button next to the subscription button. And remember, you had a small old joke. If you ever saw Seinfeld, if you are not a YouTube member, no answer for you.
Oh, there we go.
Well, and of course, that only means we're going to address YouTube members' comments and questions first. Like Rick Folias. Good morning from Atlanta. Good morning, Rick. Any update on the enteric coated versus non-coded debate on baby aspirin. I have an update, but I
Really?
want you to answer that first because I'm gonna say that you are right.
Oh my goodness. I
It's,
don't think you are. Here's my perspective on enteric coated baby aspirin. Um, some of it works, some of it doesn't. And you can't really predict. So, what I recommend people do is they just break it between their molars to make sure that they're breaking through the enteric coat to make sure that they're not pooping out that baby aspirin. So, what's your perspective, your update?
I saw a couple of papers from this year and last year, and even though the research is not kind of definitive, it's leaning towards saying that enteric coating doesn't matter. It's not as protective as thought it was.
So I was right.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh my goodness, did that hurt you to say that?
No, I mean I don't have strong feelings towards aspirin. And
You
I
have
think
strong feelings towards admitting I'm right.
no, not at all. I mean, you have proved me wrong multiple times. I just enjoy when you're wrong.
I know you do.
Woody Woodring. Just go back to the enteric coated versus non-enteric coated. It seems it doesn't matter. It doesn't enteric coated aspirin doesn't necessarily protect better against GI gastrointestinal symptoms. That's what we have seen on the research. Can Dr. Brewer explain again why blood sugar spikes over 120 are bad? And if they are only for less than 30 minutes, are they still bad? That's an interesting question.
First of all, it's a great question. I'm very, very focused on the reality of what happens. A lot of people think they get a spike. A lot of people have really good control and think that 110 is a spike and they need to avoid it. And no, they don't. There's little to no evidence that you get damage at that level. In fact, the only really good review that I've seen of the evidence about when you start getting damage was in Jenny Rule's book, Blood Sugar 101. And gosh, the last time I read that was a few years ago. The number that she suggested, based on a really good review of the evidence, was 140. And that's the one that I tend to focus on as well. I think the second part of the question is even more critical, and that is it how bad is a spike, as in less than 30 minutes, versus something else, staying up there. Here's the thing: it's staying up there that's the damage that creates the damage. It's the problem. I just saw a short from Levels using Robert Lustig, and he was saying the same thing. I mean, he was saying, look, you get up to 180, even 200. If you get it back down in less than half an hour, you're not going to do that much damage. Now, another thing to consider. Am I going on too long here, or do you want?
Well, don't worry. I'm okay. Sitting down.
So a couple of things. One thing is, it's not just blood sugar. Right now, the evidence is that it may not just be blood sugar alone that causes that damage. It's insulin. So you might be, unless you know exactly what's going on with your glucose response and your insulin response, you might not know it. We had a patient just yesterday who went through a glucose challenge. Initial blood sugar was 90. 1 hour was like 126. Not going to cause damage. And then the 2 hour was back down to 95. But when you looked at his insulin response, it went over 150 for sure. I think it went over 200. So somebody like that is going to be wearing a CGM thinking, I'm not having any problem at all. Meanwhile, his insulin may just be cranking along really high. So most of the evidence and most of the what do you call it when, quote, experts agree?
Consensus?
There's some consensus that hyperinsulinemia, even without hyperglycemia, or too much insulin, even without too much glucose, like that patient that I just described, can and will cause inflammation as well. So, 2 or 3 things to think about. Number one, no, it's not so much the peaks that get you. It's not knowing that this is a problem, not knowing that your blood sugar is way over 140. And the time we had an engineer in yesterday, and he resonated with this term, time under the curve over 140. So you look at a geometric curve, you look at your blood sugar, the longer it's over 140, hour after hour after hour, the more damage you're doing to that fragile glycocalyx, that part of the intima, the lining of your artery wall. The other major concept to think about is it may not just be glucose, it may be insulin as well. Now, what do you do about each of those? Again, for the first one, wear a CGM. If you're like me and you have a family event once a week and you sometimes eat a little bit too much dessert, you watch it on your glucometer, and you get out and do a walk or go home and do a quick hit on your attack cycle and pull that blood sugar down. What's the countermeasure for the second problem? Hyperinsulinemia without hyperglycemia. You need to get a Kraft insulin survey or something similar where you actually do a glucose challenge, but you also get insulin as well. We find that in about 20% of our folks that have insulin resistance, they're still managing their glucose at a good level.
Yeah. Will you agree with the idea that if you put your glucose down with exercise after the spike, the insulin will follow, will go down as well?
I do. The insulin's going to follow. It's going to take a while. The other thing you need to watch out for is if you've eaten so much, you've got so much mass in your stomach that you do your exercise, you bring it back down, and then it goes back up.
Well, that happens, but I don't think that. I mean, it's completely different when you have a small increase in blood glucose during exercise compared to after eating sugar or carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And the source where that sugar is coming from is completely different. If you're eating carbohydrates, that's going to come from your gut, from what you're absorbing, and then the body's waiting for you to use it. Versus when you have an increase of glucose during exercise, you're actually pulling glucose storage from your liver, and your body is preparing to use it right away because you are exercising at the moment.
Yeah.
And so that's different. And just so you know, Dr. Brewer, I'm not gonna challenge Dr. Brewer on what he said because he is right. That's what I have seen on the research as well. And somebody asked, what's more inflammatory, glucose or insulin? And to me, from what I've seen, glucose is by far more inflammatory. However, a lot of people have inflammatory problems with insulin over time and they don't know it. And that's what ends up being actually causing prediabetes and diabetes in the long run. All right. Good morning from Washington, Woody. Robert Pinsky, I have been taking a combo of nattokinase and serrapeptase, and my fibrinogen, is that how you?
Fibrinogen
levels have remained lower. I'm hoping it reduces blood clots. What do you think?
Robert's a smart guy. He attends quite a bit, and yes, he's right. If you go to the again, people like to hate on national groups, but the National Institute of Health has a good supplements area. It's a great place to find good literature reviews and evidence reviews on different supplements. And yep, you go in there and that's what you see about nattokinase and serrapeptase. And there is evidence that it helps in that space. Fibrinogen, by the way, has long been known to be a risk factor for heart attack and stroke. So that's what Robert's going after.
And Bonnie Carney, I don't know. Oh yeah, you can see it. Just a small super chat of almost $1. Thank you so much. Those go a long way. It might not seem like much, but believe me, those go a long way. And let me just go back to Joe. SXM had a question right here. Oh, okay. Well, let's answer that one and we go back to the other one. If morning glucose is normal and constant, but 1 hour glucose after eating seems to be spiking after eating, and you started a statin, what would you think?
I'm not sure I understand that. I think basically, are you saying is statin causing the
Spike.
hyperglycemia? Is that what he's talking about?
Probably because there's a follow-up question about the effects of rosuvastatin on insulin resistance, how permanent they are, and if they will
Oh,
go
okay.
away if you stop the statin. So
Okay.
I'm guessing you were not getting glucose spikes at 1 hour,
You
and
started
then you
taking a
started getting,
statin,
and then you start
started
seeing
getting the
that.
glucose spikes. No, it's not permanent. Give it a month or two. And usually it won't even take a month. The other thing I would say is we just don't see it. I mean, when we use rosuvastatin, 5 milligrams per day or less, usually or less, like 5 milligrams 3 or 4 times a week, and we don't see an impact. And I don't think you're going to. You take 10, maybe so. Clearly 20 and 40, like some of the patients that come to us, those kind of levels will cause that. Pitavastatin, if you're wanting to take a statin, pitavastatin is well known that its major advantage is that it doesn't do that. It doesn't send you down that diabetes highway.
Wonderful.
The other, I got to add one other thing. It's a bunny hole, but I think it's a very important bunny hole.
Let me get comfortable in my chair. Okay, go ahead.
I was very interested. I heard for the first time about some evidence. Here's one of the big things. If you saw Eric Westman's coverage of our aspirin video, you'll see one of the big differences between us and the rest of the low carb community. The rest of the low carb community has sort of looked at us a little bit side-eyed, and the reason for it is Eric mentions in his video covering our aspirin thing. So he's saying, look, why would you have to take any medicine, any prescription medicine at all whatsoever if you are on a low carb or keto diet? And that's a really good question. And I don't know. Back at one point in time, I would say over half of the patients that I saw that had plaque and I offered statins would say, don't want to do it. And as you know, Jesus, we're totally comfortable with that. Not only because we're just not a paternalistic practice, but because I think that's the reality. I don't think it's clear yet. In fact, I heard for the first time quote of evidence about maybe statins are not as helpful for people on a low carb diet. And that was the 5S study, and it was quoted by David Diamond recently. So here's the thing. Yes, clearly, most folks that watch this channel and understand the things like this that we're talking about do know more than most doctors, including family practitioners, internists, and cardiologists that do most of the cardiovascular prevention in our country and around the world. Most folks that are watching this know more about it than them. So I'm totally comfortable with our patients making their own decision. And this is not an advertisement for the practice. It's a reality. The other thing to think about is the evidence is not clear. There's only one study so far that actually indicates, no, if you're on a low carb diet, maybe you don't need statins. So I hope I didn't muddy that concept up too much. Maybe you can translate for me if I did.
I think what we're trying to say, one of Dr. Westman's points was there is not enough evidence on people who are on a low carb ketogenic diet.
And I couldn't
Uh,
agree more.
and there are a lot of ethical considerations behind that because the standards of care is still consider low carb or keto as dangerous. So, who, which ethics board is going to approve a, a study where you intentionally put people on a dangerous diet? You don't see that happening very often. You start seeing some of that now with that study you just quoted, and now you're gonna be talking tomorrow on your Friday rant about the new study that finally got published, the keto study comparing low
Mm,
carb diet, high LDL, and plaque development. That's already published. Our friends Dave Feldman, Nick Norwitz, Dr. Adrian Sotomoda, with the support of Dr. Matthew Budoff. Uh, Really good study. It's a
yeah.
landmark study now. I think just a piece that is helping research to go beyond and breaking paradigms. And just watch the video this morning from Nick. He posted a video. I don't know if you saw that, where he said this study on LDL is not saying LDL doesn't matter, but it's also challenging the idea that LDL is all there is in regards to cardiovascular risk.
Yeah.
That's and it's hard because I'm gonna give you another I was right moment, Dr. Brewer. Um, Whenever you ask Dr. Brewer for a definitive answer, he always says it depends. That's real. That's reality
It's
right
true.
there.
It is
Every
reality,
person is different.
unfortunately.
So this study, the LDL study, the keto study, is on people who are lean mass hyperresponders. So if you are not a lean mass hyperresponders, those results probably don't apply to you. But how do you know if you're a lean mass hyperresponder? If you start a low carb or ketogenic diet, that's when you're gonna find out.
Let me emphasize and maybe translate something that you had hidden in there that uh, a lot of people probably missed. I think one of the things you're saying is, does LDL matter? You know, you've got Peter Attia and Thomas Dayspring and Tom Schneiderman, all that crowd saying it's not even LDL now, it's ApoB. And, you know, the trashing on either side of the statin deniers, which Peter would call some of the low carb community. Here's the thing: that evidence is showing something that, again, reality's messy, but it is what it is. You can argue with it if you want. Argue with reality at your own hazard, at your own risk. LDL does seem to matter if you're not metabolically, no, yes, if you're not metabolically healthy. And we see that all the time. Somebody comes in that's not metabolically healthy, LDL level, higher LDL is a problem.
Just 88% of Americans.
Yep. But it's clearly not 88% of our population.
Oh no, no. That's why we're a little bit different, and our audience is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because if I was able to do a survey on who on the audience is metabolically unhealthy, I bet it's not gonna be as much
Mm.
as the general population. It's not gonna be 88%. I don't think it's gonna be even 50%.
Well, we got our own little survey already, and you just whipped me on that one.
I don't know what you were expecting, Dr. Brewer. I didn't want to put you on the spot, and you did it yourself.
You whipped me. I mean, it's like pre-diabetes, pre-diabetes, pre-diabetes. So, you know, I get it.
All right.
I'll admit defeat on that one. But to your point, we've got a whole bunch of people that are very much more aware of metabolic disease than your typical primary care doctor in the
Definitely.
U.S.
And
Unfortunately,
I want to go to the next question. I hope that helped, Joe. This is not a member, but it's interesting because I want to ask you one thing regarding this comment. Shannon Ashford says, I just got out of the hospital after having a 99% blockage in my LED. I guess it was LAD.
LAD probably
LAD, yeah.
left anterior descending.
Artery, the Widowmaker. and
Mhm.
having a heart attack last week. And today's her birthday. So first of all, happy birthday. I'm glad that you're here with us after dealing with a heart attack.
Yes,
Not many people have that opportunity, and I'm glad that you're here trying to avoid that from happening ever again. What
50%.
what would you recommend to somebody who just had a heart attack and is new to the channel and wants to prevent that from happening back again?
Mm. Gosh, there's so many different ways you could go. I mean, but the first thing I would do is make sure I got off carbs. And then I would go ahead and get an OGTT, insulin response, and fractionation. Now, that may all sound a little bit technical. If it is, pardon me if it sounds like I'm advertising the channel, but maybe we could set up something where we could give Shannon a complimentary evaluation. First visit evaluation,
Oh,
just to
Dr.
make
Brewer.
sure.
Okay. So Gilbert, can you put the phone number? 859-721-1414. And I think you need to tell the office, Dr. Brewer. Well, we can just let the office know.
But that's the first thing I would do. So you see where I'm going. Assess your metabolic health, because it happens time and time again. We have people come in from strokes, from heart attacks, and they're full diabetic, and it was never diagnosed.
All right. Joe is asking a very good question that I'm not sure I know the exact answer. How can you tell if natto is fermented or just spoiled?
Well, I remember when we did a deep dive on natto, and I made the comment that natto tastes terrible, and it tasted like rotten beans with dirt, and I really got beat up on that. And I agree. It's another way of saying it is it's an acquired taste. But there are a lot of people out there that are pretty deep into natto and really enjoy it. Short answer is I don't know.
I think it's I hate cooking. I know probably a lot of our audience likes cooking. I hate it because a lot of cooking is how you feel it, how you taste it. It's about this amount. It's about this time, and I think this applies right here. If you let it ferment for too much time, it's gonna get spoiled. And I think that's the difference. But I don't know the exact moment until how did you differentiate between fermenting and spoiling?
Well, I will tell you this. My dad and my brother used to make wine, and sometimes the wine would spoil. And usually what was going on was it was something else other than what you wanted took over. So
yeah, a more dangerous bacteria over there that can cause disease rather than healthy bacteria that you want in there, right?
Or just a bacteria that's not beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's what would happen with wine as well.
Yeah. And Joey T, how is nattokinase better than high dose K2?
I'm not sure that it is. And again, I think we're actually talking a little bit more about apples and oranges, because K2, I'm going to go down that bunny hole. I'm not. I'm just going to make a quick statement. I think K2 actually has more of an impact on insulin resistance than anything else. And if you have a question about my proposed mechanism, you can see some of our other videos. Natto, on the other hand, is again a little bit more involved with clot formation, as Jesus said in the beginning. Antiplatelet activities, things like that. So two very different mechanisms. One more involved with clotting, the other one more involved with the original offense, which so many people on here already know, and that is insulin resistance.
And also one more thing is K2 doesn't have an antiplatelet, antifibrinogen effect, meaning K2 Correct. Doesn't necessarily decrease its clots, as nattokinase has shown to be able to do.
So K2 is over in the prediabetes area. I'm the only one. I'm not the only one saying that. K2 is more in prediabetes activity, and natto and nattokinase is more over in the clot forming area.
And well, Natto has nattokinase and some K2 on it as well,
Yes.
or some vitamin K2. Yeah. And Tree Lady, do you remember Tree Lady?
I remember the moniker. I don't remember.
We met her in San Diego.
Oh, that. Okay, you got it. Good to see you again, Tree Lady, and thanks, Jesus, for connecting the dots for me.
I know.
You got a 30-year-old brain, and mine's 67. So
those damn statins. Those Natto or K2 reduce burn spurs formation. I get that spurs are really from osteoarthritis. I have an answer for that actually, but do you want to give it a shot?
Nope.
I have seen papers where they say K2 can improve osteoarthritis, improve symptoms, help with that. Of course, it's not. I don't think it's as good as a painkiller, but it might be good on the long term. I'm skeptical it can decrease the spurs. It might on the long term, but I don't think it's going to be that significant. But also, K2 is pretty much a safe supplement too. I haven't seen evidence on dangers on K2. So
that's for sure.
Those are my 2 cents for that. Joey T is asking how many fibrin units of nattokinase to have.
That's going to have to be you, Jesus. Yeah, I've already demonstrated my math is terrible. I can't even count to 76.
On that top 7 foods video, if you haven't watched it, just Google or search Dr. Brewer top 7 foods.
I screwed it up in that video too, didn't I?
You were supposed to say fibrin units, and you were all on grams. The only study that has used units in humans said that it was 10,800 fibrin units, although you can see some benefit on 7,000, 8,000. But we only have one study referencing that. So research.
And then you see other recommendations for 2,000. And
I think 2,000 is just too low. But that's just my perspective.
Well. Yeah.
Joe SXM order a Stello CGM. Oh, is that on the market already?
That's what somebody else is saying. They didn't know that it was ready yet.
That's the over the counter Dexcom glucose monitor.
Excellent. Now, what would make a CGM over the counter versus prescription level?
I don't think there's so much of a difference. Do you think?
I think there's something in the infinite wisdom of the FDA that created that difference. I actually did have a battle with the FDA one time over a preventive injection and won the battle, but lost the war.
So it lasts for 15 days and it costs about $100. They give you a 10% discount if you subscribe to their website. So interesting. I mean, I think you should try it, and maybe we can do a review on it.
Yeah, I know that's going to be on your list of my to-dos.
Yeah, it's already there.
Your growing list.
You should be going into the Stello website right now and start getting that one for you.
So it's by Dexcom. That's interesting. So Dexcom probably went to FDA and said, "Here, we've made the following changes. Let's make it over the counter."
And now
I'm glad. This should have happened 20 years
ago. Yeah. Joe Comment also is challenging you on something. Try to experiment with other foods. Just ate 1 serving of steel oats with half-cut raspberry and got a glucose of 160 after 1 hour. But you said steel-cut oats are fine and raspberries are fine, aren't they?
Oh, so what Joe is saying is, I've been saying steel-cut oats were fine. He ate them and he went up to 160 after an hour.
Yeah, well, with raspberries. So my money is that probably was more of the raspberries. Overall, raspberries, blueberries are usually fine. But now you have to take in consideration the amount. And we do have seen people who cannot tolerate berries either. But usually the glucose, even if it goes that high, it goes back down fairly quickly.
So here's another area where I would argue with you, Jesus. It very well may be the steel cut oats. Some people A, react to steel cut oats, and B, are so insulin resistant that they can get this kind of reaction. I've seen it multiple times before.
Yep.
So
what do you say?
Yep, I probably screwed up, but as usual, I really screwed up in the communication more than anything else. If I implied that steel cut oats are okay for everybody, they're not. They're not okay for everybody. You need to do exactly what Joe SXM did and try it for yourself. The only difference between the difference between steel cut oats and instant oats, which are bad for just about everybody, is the speed at which those carbs get delivered to the bloodstream. And some of us are so insulin resistant that even the very slow speed of steel cut oats is still too much for your insulin receptors.
Yep. I think that's the first advice. Wear a CGM and find out what happens to you. I can tell you for a fact, my wife and I can eat the same thing. She's 32 years old. I'm 33. And our numbers are completely different, even eating the same thing. Gut biome is different. Genetics are different. I do have insulin resistance to prediabetes levels. She doesn't. So it's even if you eat the same thing, it's going to be different for each person.
Well, I will also bet this, that your reaction to everything is different now than it was 6 months ago.
Oh, yeah, definitely, by far. I don't know if, for those who are not aware, I recently lost 30 pounds and I haven't gained any of that back. And the only thing that I can consider I really cut from my diet that was heavy on carbs was tortillas. That's the only significant change that I can say I did, because I wasn't even drinking sodas or anything else. And I cranked up my exercise as well. And I think doing a 5-day water fasting also helped. Well, 3-day water fasting plus 3-day sardine fasting. We have videos on that you can see on the show. But anyhow, digressing right here, learning from Dr. Brewer to talk about other stuff. Black Tengu, always take your baby aspirin after meals. That can help a little bit with the absorption. Do you agree with that?
I think it can help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also help decrease irritation. You usually don't get a whole lot of irritation from baby aspirin, but some people, it's just like Joe SM's comment about steel cut oats. Some people react negatively to even to baby aspirin, especially older people that have, in their 80s, for example, that have some esophageal problems or stomach issues. Shouldn't be taking it.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen our video on aspirin from about 2 weeks ago, go check it out. Some people are like, oh, they're seeing an aspirin and they're saying Dr. Brewer is pushing medications back again. And the video is very clear. Some people might take it. Some people don't need to take it. Just watch the video. And of course, we're happy to answer comments when we can. K2 and Natto help with this, utilize calcium for our bones, not to remove from arteries. Can taking both D3, K2, and Natto be more beneficial? I'll guess so. I think those are 3 really good options for supplementation. And I will say one more thing. I do have seen some research regarding aortic calcification.
Aortic calcification.
Aortic calcification. The aorta is the biggest artery in your body. It goes out from the left ventricle, which is where the heart is pumping most of the blood for all the body. And the aorta, right where it's joined with the heart, can get calcified, and the calcification in there, we're not talking coronary arteries, well, we're talking aorta. Significant calcification in there is like if you're having a water pipe that is getting obstructed, and for the heart, it's harder to push blood through it. So that can lead to heart failure. And some research has shown that vitamin K2 actually can decrease that calcification. But evidence is not as strong for coronary calcification, which is the flow that arteries that provide nutrients to the heart itself to work. Do you want to translate that, Dr. Brewer, for me, please?
No, that's very complicated. I'm not sure I understood it.
Oh man,
Actually,
we can talk our aortic calcification at some moment, maybe in another live.
I will real quick try to do that. So some people argue about whether or not, I keep saying, and a lot of people hate me for it. Most other YouTube content creators say K2 takes calcium out of the arteries, and Jesus was pointing out there is actually evidence that it can take calcium out of the aorta. And the aorta is a big deal because that is the biggest artery that the heart pumps into. Calcification of that aorta suddenly takes what was an expanding
like a water hose
receiver of the heart's output into something that's rigid now. And his point was, yeah, that can be a big deal, especially for the aorta. But the second point was back to the coronary calcium. It doesn't seem to make as much of a difference there.
Wonderful. We have like 3 minutes. I want to finish before the hour mark. Woody, Dr. B,
I'm not betting on you though.
This is the last question. Dr. B,
okay.
My wife is a current patient and doing her initial CGM testing. She ate mashed potatoes and her sugar went up to 250, then down to 73. So big. Any thoughts on such big swings? What's going on?
Well, I will say this, and people, I get beat up for a lot of stuff. Well, one of the things I get beat up for is a fairly strict interpretation of diabetes. I say anytime somebody hits 200, period, by any kind of viable classification, including a CGM, that you fit one of the major criteria for diabetes. And a lot of people, doctors especially, will say, "Oh, no. During the half-hour number, it can go much higher, and you're still not diabetic." And my perspective is, okay, I hope your patients don't trust you, because I don't mean maybe that sounded harsh.
Way to end the stream, Dr. Brewer.
I'm sorry. Maybe there's a better way you can help translate and make that sound better. But here's the other thing, though. So many people think that a diagnosis of full diabetes is like a death sentence, and it's not at all. I've got full-blown diabetes, and it's not only is it not gonna kill me, it's really not gonna harm me. I know about it, and you can take that risk right off the table. And that is one thing that myself and the entire low-carb community and Jason Fung and everybody else agrees with. You can take the risk of diabetes off the table. So don't be afraid of it. Be aware of it, but don't be afraid of it.
Wonderful. All right, so let's wrap it up. Guys, if you made it this far, I have two major announcements for you. Don't miss tomorrow's Friday rant, 11 a.m. Dr. Brewer is going to talk about the new keto study results. We are trying to publish this Saturday a redo of our #1 best meal to clear arteries video. That one was an hour long. This one is going to be more like a half an hour, but it has different things that were not specified on the original video. So
it goes deeper. That out. It starts from there and goes deeper.
Yeah. And the last thing is, if you haven't seen our latest video we published on Saturday about the #1 worst cholesterol lie, link should appear in the screen when we finish the stream. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for showing that much love. We're very happy, very grateful. And next week, that's another announcement. Next week, Dr. Brewer and I will be on another conference, so we won't be live, but we have a very, very good show recorded with Dr. Nick Verhoeven from the Physionic channel about mitochondrial health and longevity. So don't miss that out next week. All right. Want to close the show, Dr. Brewer?
Don't let Tony the Tiger take over your family's dinner. And thank you for your interest.
All right.